There's a button?
Why is there a button?
Tim, do not press that button.
I'm going to press the button. Going to press the button.
Don't press that button. Greg.
Press the button.
Clemps?
Good,
Clemps?
press the button.
Sit down.
No, the button.
Sit down.
Do not press that button until the time is right.
Push!
Show you who's boss in this gym.
Square Enix wouldn't be the company it is today if it wasn't for Final Fantasy. They wouldn't even be around anymore if it wasn't for their last attempt at staying in the industry thanks to their company going bankrupt, but I guess the stars were all aligned as the game won audiences' hearts back, thus saving the company from falling under. The series exploded after this, birthing a mixture of different universes and characters. By the time Final Fantasy VII came out, people were buying PlayStations just to play the game. It was a crazy time. On a personal note, Final Fantasy is one of the most important titles in my life as it's been with me since I first started playing video games, and I always respected the fact that sometimes the formula needs to be broken in order to keep the franchise feeling fresh and original. You could sense that Square were trying to spice things up with the gameplay and visuals to make sure each new release felt unique. Final Fantasy XII is one of the biggest examples I can think of when it comes to changing the gameplay. A few years after Final Fantasy XIII came out, even Sakaguchi, the father of the series, came out on stage and expressed his concerns on where his baby was being taken.
You know, とても、心配になるものです。
And don't forget all the trouble we got into.
Why does somebody not know how to flush a toilet after they've had a shit?
What do you mean?
Well, it was fucking one of yous. Disgusting!
He left the series with Final Fantasy IX, a game which I think is his magnum opus. He somehow managed to encapsulate the word fantasy perfectly, whilst also being light-hearted and dark in all of the right places. The game isn't perfect, and despite being my favourite game, I can at least admit there's a ton of stuff I wish they would have done if they had more time behind them. After he left, some would argue that the series started to go downhill immediately with 10, argument being its lack of a world map and badly written characters, but I'd have to disagree due to my own tastes.
Hey everybody, James Arnold Taylor here, the voice of Tidus in Final Fantasy X. And of course, sharing stories about Final Fantasy, you could not do it without mentioning this one right here. Okay, stop, Tidus, stop.
Stop, Tidus, stop.
It was supposed to be an awkward, goofy, dumb laugh.
You see, what confuses me is, like, why the fuck did he need to tell anyone? Like, have you seen the clip? It's obvious. Fuck is the matter with you?
If you ask people when the downfall of Final Fantasy began, you'll get a mixture of different answers, but most of the time you'll find a lot of people tend to dislike 13. And even if you're a fan of the game, you have to admit that it stepped on a lot of people's toes. For some fans, it was the final nail in the coffin, and I can imagine that despite the reasonably good sales, Square are feeling a little bit sweaty after seeing all of the negative feedback. And when Final Fantasy XV was announced during E3 2013, a lot of people were cautiously excited. Emphasis on cautiously. So, where did Final Fantasy XV start off? Well, we have to look all the way back in 2006 when Tetsuya Nomura was in the reins as the game's director, back when it was called Versus 13. Yeah, it's really been that long. Back then I was only a wee boy and let's just say I'm glad I learned some life lessons along the way. The name Versus 13 came from the fact that it was quite literally going up against the 13th mainline title, whilst also being part of the Nova Crystallis series. So I'm sure if it was left in that state, it'll be filled with references to the Fal'Cie and Lissi, kinda similar to how Type 0 did it. But over the years, things went quiet, leading a lot of people to believe that the game was nothing but vaporware. And then in the year 2013, something happened. Something happened which no one was expecting.
これが対をなす幻想。いや、世界は常に変化する。15番目だ。
Now here's where I'm going to go back and touch on my previous point about Square trying to switch things up a bit. Final Fantasy XV was going to be the first mainline Final Fantasy game to have action combat, and this pissed a lot of people off. The formula has been breached, who put this cherry cola in here? At the time I could understand why this pissed people off, but I was also willing to give it a chance. I mean, Nomura was directing it, and although in my opinion he's not a particularly good writer, he always excels in making character action games. So when the news that Nomura was stepping down as the game's director... Who's this cheeky little shit? Well, during 2014, Nomura had to step down to speed up the direction of Kingdom Hearts 3, wherever that may be, leaving the direction to its co-director, Hajime Tabata. Tabata has directed a bunch of Final Fantasy spin-offs in his time, but never before has he come close to directing a game with this much responsibility. A part of me feels sorry for the guy. This is a weight. He's been quoted multiple times talking about Final Fantasy XV being the series' last chance of staying in the video game race. I mean, talk about responsibility. Ultimately, Tabata being left alone as a sole director came with some changes, though Nomura also decided to make a big change to the game's universe and it was labelled as the 15th mainline title. By deciding to remove many links to the Nova Crystallis series, Final Fantasy XV is freed from trying to include the new tropes from those specific games, meaning that if there was any reference to things like Lassie or Etro, the Goddess of Death, they are most likely removed or heavily watered down. I'm still not sure if Etro's going to be in the final product, but I guess this mural looks kind of like her, so I guess we'll have to find out. From everything I've seen / played so far, the game is reminding me more of Final Fantasy VIII than 13. You can drive your own car, the magic system is similar to the draw system in that you only have a limited amount of magic and you need to extract / buy it from locations or vendors, and the world itself is slightly more modern than your classic medieval fantasy game. One of Tabata's decisions in terms of the plot was one of the leading ladies, Stella, being changed to a similar looking, if not the same young lady with a different name, Luna Freya. Again, this sparked minor controversy despite the fact that her personality and goals remain mainly the same. The game's combat took a shift as well, going from something very similar to the gameplay in Kingdom Hearts to this weird hybrid version which better suits Tabata's old man hands. Tabata's direction has yet to be seen completely, as we've only been able to play a couple of demos, which admittedly does date this video somewhat if you're watching after September when the game is finally released, and I'll more than likely make a follow-up video talking about my experiences. From what I played of the episode Duskay demo, I loved the banter between the characters, but the gameplay left me with a bad taste in my mouth. This wasn't exactly helped when the next demo came out, which decided to show off the visuals more than the gameplay they teased us with constantly in trailers. I'll admit, the visuals look gorgeous, and despite the frame drops, I'd say this is going to be one of the prettiest looking games on the current gen hardware. But I mean, why keep the gameplay restricted? Even when we had the chance to experience the new gameplay changes, they still kept a lot of the moves such as warping locked behind a time wall. I guess my opinions on Tabata are mainly positive so far. His idea to keep the public updated with his progress in his ATR events was an amazing idea, and really made me respect the guy. It's clear he's trying his hardest to make the game as good as possible, going as far to have an almost constant stream of feedback coming in from fans who played the demo. But this doesn't mean all the things implemented after the feedback are good. For example, in episode Duskay you couldn't manually dodge, so they added it into the Platinum demo. I noticed something was off about it, but I couldn't put my finger on it till my good friend Dax pointed out that it's not even a functional dodge roll. The dodge doesn't have any invincibility frames, making it pretty much useless! A good example of iframes is in Dark Souls. Whenever you dodge an enemy attack, even if the weapon technically should have hit you, it won't do any damage. This is down to being invincible during your roll. In the Platinum demo, those frames don't even exist. At best, this could work in the actual game if you're going up against regular enemies who have a slow wind-up attack, but trying to use it against large enemies like the Iron Giant is one of the worst things ever. I get that the meter dodge is the dodge they want us to use, and this dodge is a last resort, but I'd probably have a better chance of surviving by running away. Moving on, and regardless if it was Tabata's choice or not, during the Uncovered event they threw a goddamn anime and CG movie at us. I mean, talk about an apology, or a very logical business strategy.
あまり気を緩めないでくれ。騒ぎにでもなれば面倒な。ノクト。
The anime isn't all that bad, though I have a few nitpicks here and there. Like, why do they decide to go for Maralith as the big bad that killed Noctis's mother? This is only a prediction, but I'm guessing since she's one of the four fiends, we'll probably have to end up fighting Tiamat, Kraken and Lish. But I'm not exactly feeling intimidated by Maralith. I mean, I'm feeling something, but you know, I'm not scared, that's for sure, buddy. Also, near the end of the episode, would a robo-soldiers drop a big-ass container and Maralith slithers out after 15 years or so after their first encounter? Like, was that predetermined, or was it a big coincidence? Snake boobs. I've got a strong feeling that the bros on a road trip scenario won't last for the entirety of the game and will instead be a calm before the storm kind of situation, where bad things happen during the course of a game which will inevitably split a crew up and cause conflicts. I'm also wondering if they'll pull a bait and switch on us, maybe leading us to believe that these four characters are here to stay till the end, but killing one off halfway through only to replace them with a different main character. I guess we'll find out in a few months, huh? So to finalise this rather short video, I guess it all comes down to Final Fantasy XV holding the future of the series on its shoulders, just like our Final Fantasy I saved Square Enix from going under. It's an upsetting thought to imagine one of my favourite series of all time falling from grace with an awkward splat, but everything has to end sometime. I'd love to see the series continue to grow and flourish for many years to come, and Final Fantasy XV is definitely looking good, but what it really comes down to is, will it actually be good? When the game finally hits in September, I'll give my full opinions on the game once I played it through, and who knows, maybe I'll give it a review. I think it says a lot that despite it being part of my favourite series, I'm more excited to play Persona 5. Maybe this title will win my heart back. Till then, at least we have the anime. Seriously though, snake tip.